Donald Trump promised to put America first. His vision was to prioritize American interests in every policy decision, especially in the realm of international trade. He believed that other countries were taking advantage of the United States in trade deals. Trump argued that these deals were unfair and detrimental to the American economy, leading to job losses and a weakened industrial base. To fix this, he imposed tariffs or taxes on goods coming from other countries, especially China. These tariffs were intended to level the playing field and make foreign goods more expensive, thereby encouraging consumers to buy American-made products. Trump argued that these tariffs would protect American jobs and businesses. By making imported goods more costly, he believed that American companies would be more competitive, leading to increased production and job creation within the United States. He wanted to bring manufacturing back to the U.S. and reduce the trade deficit. The trade deficit, which is the difference between what the U.S. imports and exports, had been growing for years, and Trump saw this as a sign of economic weakness. These tariffs were a major part of Trump's economic policy. He believed that by imposing these taxes he could revitalize American industry and restore the country's economic strength. They represented a big shift away from decades of free trade agreements. For years, the U.S. had pursued policies that promoted free trade, believing that open markets would benefit all. Trump, however, saw these agreements as one-sided and harmful to American workers. Trump believed that these agreements had hurt American workers and businesses. He argued that free trade had led to the outsourcing of jobs and the decline of American manufacturing. He wanted to negotiate new deals that were fairer to the United States. Trump aimed to create agreements that would protect American jobs and ensure that the U.S. was not being taken advantage of by other countries. The tariffs were controversial from the start. Critics argued that they would lead to higher prices for consumers and retaliatory measures from other countries. Many economists warned that they would hurt the U.S. economy. They predicted that the tariffs would lead to trade wars, which could disrupt global supply chains and harm economic growth. They argued that tariffs would raise prices for consumers and businesses, slowing down economic growth. Higher costs for imported goods would mean higher prices for everyday items, affecting the average American's cost of living. Despite these warnings, Trump moved ahead with his tariffs. He remained steadfast in his belief that these measures were necessary to protect American interests and rebuild the nation's industrial base. He believed that they were necessary to protect American interests. Trump saw the tariffs as a tool to ensure that American businesses could compete on a level playing field and that the U.S. economy could thrive. The tariffs had a significant impact on the global economy, sparking trade wars and uncertainty. Countries affected by the tariffs responded with their own measures, leading to a complex web of trade disputes and negotiations. Trump's tariffs primarily targeted China, aiming to address the trade imbalance between the two nations. The U.S. and China have the world's two biggest economies, with a combined GDP that dwarfs other nations. This meant their trade relationship was very important, influencing global markets and economic policies. Trump imposed tariffs on hundreds of billions of dollars worth of Chinese goods, aiming to reduce the trade deficit. These goods included everything from electronics, which are integral to modern life, to clothing, which is a daily necessity, to steel, a critical material for infrastructure and manufacturing. The tariffs ranged in size from 10% to 25%, significantly impacting the cost of these goods. This meant American businesses and consumers had to pay more for these goods, affecting their purchasing power and business costs. The goal was to make Chinese goods more expensive and encourage Americans to buy American-made products instead, boosting domestic industries. The tariffs weren't just limited to China, they extended to other nations as well. Trump also imposed tariffs on steel and aluminum imports from other countries, aiming to protect American metal industries. These included close allies like Canada, Mexico, and the European Union, leading to strained relationships. Trump argued that these tariffs were necessary for national security reasons, claiming they would protect critical industries. These tariffs caused immediate tensions with these countries, leading to diplomatic challenges. They retaliated with their own tariffs on American goods, creating a cycle of economic retaliation. This set off a series of tit-for-tat tariffs that escalated trade tensions around the world, affecting global trade dynamics and economic stability. The international community reacted swiftly and negatively to Trump's tariffs. Many world leaders criticized the tariffs as protectionist and harmful to the global economy. They argued that tariffs would disrupt global supply chains and lead to higher prices for consumers. The European Union, Canada, and Mexico were particularly critical of the tariffs. These countries are some of America's closest trading partners. They felt that the tariffs were unfair and unjustified. In response, they imposed retaliatory tariffs on a range of American goods. These retaliatory tariffs targeted key American exports. These included agricultural products, motorcycles, and bourbon. The goal was to put pressure on the Trump administration to reverse course on its tariff policy. However, the tariffs remained in place. This led to a protracted trade war between the U.S. and its allies. Economists warned that Trump's tariffs would have negative consequences for the global economy. They argued that tariffs would disrupt global supply chains, raise prices for consumers, and slow economic growth. These warnings proved to be accurate. The tariffs led to increased uncertainty in the global economy. This made businesses less likely to invest and hire. The tariffs also contributed to higher prices for consumers as businesses passed on the costs of the tariffs to their customers. Developing countries were particularly vulnerable to the negative effects of the tariffs. Many developing countries rely heavily on exports to the U.S. and China for their economic growth. The tariffs disrupted these trade flows and hurt their economies. History is full of examples of trade wars and their negative consequences. These conflicts often arise when countries impose tariffs or other trade barriers to protect their domestic industries, but the results are rarely beneficial. One of the most famous examples is the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act of 1930. This legislation was intended to protect American farmers and manufacturers from foreign competition. This act raised tariffs on over 20,000 imported goods to record levels, making it extremely expensive to import goods into the United States. Many economists believe that the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act worsened the Great Depression. By stifling international trade, it reduced the availability of goods and increased prices, leading to economic hardship. It led to a sharp decline in global trade and investment as other countries retaliated with their own tariffs, creating a vicious cycle of economic decline. The tariffs also contributed to rising tensions between countries, which ultimately led to World War II. The economic strain and protectionist policies fostered an environment of distrust and competition. Another example is the chicken tax of 1963. This trade dispute began when France and West Germany imposed tariffs on American chicken, claiming unfair competition. In response, the United States retaliated with tariffs on European goods like trucks and brandy, aiming to pressure European countries to remove their tariffs. The United States retaliated with tariffs on European goods like trucks and brandy. This tit-for-tat escalation is a common feature of trade wars, where each side tries to outdo the other. This chicken war lasted for several years and hurt both sides economically. The tariffs led to higher prices for consumers and strained relations between the countries involved. These historical examples show that trade wars are rarely successful. They often fail to achieve their intended goals and instead create economic turmoil. They often harm the economies of all countries involved, leading to job losses, higher prices, and reduced economic growth. They can also lead to political tensions and instability as countries become more isolated and less willing to cooperate on global issues. The lessons from history are clear. Trade wars are a lose-lose situation. Trump's tariffs have had a profound impact on the global trading system. They have led to increased uncertainty, protectionism, and tensions between countries. The future of global trade remains uncertain. Some experts believe that the tariffs could lead to a fragmentation of the global trading system. Countries may start to form regional trading blocs. This would reduce their dependence on the United States and China. This could lead to a less efficient and more costly global trading system. Other experts believe that the tariffs could ultimately lead to a more balanced and fair trading system. They argue that the tariffs have forced other countries to take the issue of unfair trade practices more seriously. This could lead to new trade agreements that are more beneficial to all countries involved. The tariffs created a great deal of uncertainty for businesses around the world. Businesses thrive on predictability. The tariffs made it difficult for businesses to plan for the future. This led to decreased investment and hiring. Many businesses were forced to adjust their supply chains in response to the tariffs. This often meant finding new suppliers in different countries. This process was costly and time-consuming. In some cases, businesses were unable to find suitable alternatives. This led to shortages and higher prices. The tariffs also had a negative impact on consumer confidence. When people are uncertain about the economy, they are less likely to spend money. This led to decreased demand for goods and services. This further slowed economic growth. The tariffs were not just about economics. They were also part of a broader geopolitical strategy by the Trump administration. Trump wanted to challenge China's growing economic and military power. He believed that China was engaging in unfair trade practices that were harming the United States economy. The tariffs were intended to pressure China to make concessions on a range of issues. These included intellectual property theft, forced technology transfer, and market access. The tariffs also aimed to reduce the United States trade deficit with China. The tariffs had a significant impact on United States-China relations. They led to increased tensions and mistrust between the two countries. The tariffs also made it more difficult to cooperate on other important issues. These included climate change and North Korea. The tariffs imposed by the Trump administration have had a significant impact on the global economy. They have led to increased uncertainty, protectionism, and tensions between countries. The future of global trade remains uncertain. It is important to stay informed about the ongoing developments in the global trade landscape. Trade wars can have a direct impact on our daily lives. They can affect the prices we pay for goods, the availability of products, and even our job security. By staying informed, we can better understand the complex forces that are shaping the global economy. We can also make more informed decisions about our own economic lives. Keep up with reliable news sources and economic analysis to stay ahead of the curve.